Hey y'all, just taking Pepper for a little walk, see? And just got back from the Smoky Mountain Bigfoot Conference. That was pretty cool. But this is just a little update and a story. And the update's basically, we will hopefully have a new podcast episode out soon. It's just been a really hectic couple weeks. So we're looking forward to a new style of podcast and maybe just a little bit of slight change to the format. I know we said we were going to take a little bit off and then come back with all new episodes, so that's what we plan on doing. And we've been just trying to brainstorm some ideas and get things going, and hopefully, see what happens. And then we had the Bigfoot Conference in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, which was crazy. It was really cool. We got to meet some cool people like Amy Bew and Lyle Blackburn and couple other folks that was really cool, like Adam Davies, Ken Gearhard. That was neat. Really surprising turnout, in the middle of a pandemic. Everybody was social distancing, and I had my mask on the entire time, unless I was changing out masks and putting another one on, because you should really do that if you have to wear your mask for a really long time. So, did that. It was exhausting. We're still beat. We got home this weekend and still kind of sleeping it off, even though I've got a full shift of work tomorrow, pretty much. Which kind of brings me to my story. So, as you guys know, not just a paranormal researcher, I help a food nonprofit here in Western North Carolina. And their goal is to improve food access throughout Western rural North Carolina. But since the pandemic hit, we're also really concerned about providing emergency food to people who need it. And the pandemic has kind of hit this rural area super duper hard. So we're doing food pantries and drive-through ones. So, reduce the spread of COVID, wearing masks, and everybody drives through instead of coming in and interacting with us. We also offer something where we're delivering food to people who need it, like elderly folks or people who just need help. So we'll deliver the food, hey Pepper, and bring it to them safely and wearing masks and gloves and stuff like that. Well, I volunteered to do the deliveries, and it's really cool because I get a driver from the local transportation service out here, and they drive along in a really nice little bus, and I drop off food boxes to all these different addresses. And I've done it once before, but then the second time that I did last week was a little weird. And I don't know how to explain it. I mean, it might have a rational explanation, who knows? But to me, it was just really, really weird. And the whole circumstances around it are a little weird too. So I put all my boxes of food on this transit van bus thing, and I say hello to my driver. She's a really sweet lady that knows the area really well, which is cool because I want to know the area better too. And we're driving along, and she's looking at a list, and she's like, making mental notes and doing those little hms. And she's like, all right. So we start doing a couple of deliveries, and then she looks back at her list, and she's like, oh, that's interesting. And I'm like, what? And she's like, we just have some weird addresses on our list. They're kind of out of the way of my route. I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't really think anything of it. I thought, oh, well, maybe we're just expanding our reach and there's more people who need help. Cool, So we keep on, and my driver, she loves to tell me stuff, like little stories about the area and people. And she mentioned that her person who helped deliver food the other week wasn't really talkative, kind of shy, and didn't like going to some of the places. Didn't really say why, didn't specify at all. And then right as she said that, she looked at the rest of her list. She's like, that makes sense. And I'm like, what? She's like, well, some of the places on the list are places that the last person didn't really want to go to, or when she did, she doesn't want to go back. I'm like, that's weird. What's going on? And I'm thinking, okay, maybe it's a really rundown place. Maybe it's just a creepy place, or, this is the South. Maybe it was just kind of sketchy. I don't know. So I was like, all right, whatever. And we finally get to those last couple of stops on our route, And the first one, it wasn't scary. It was just the address didn't make sense. Like, we found the address and the GPS was like, okay, you're here. Obviously, we weren't. We were in front of a tree, so we had to keep driving. So it was just hard to find. So it wasn't spooky, it was just hard to find. And then the next address, she's like, she laughs a little bit. She's like, here it is. And I'm like, what? She's like, this is a place that really kind of made the last volunteer person not happy. I'm like, okay. What is it? And she's like, it's Spooky Hollow. And I'm like, ah, ha, ha. Because she does know I do a paranormal podcast. She's like, no, it's Spooky Hollow, and it's kind of on the outskirts of town, or the town proper. It's a bit out there. I'm like, okay. So we get to this place, and it is tucked in the woods. Like, you turn off a main road, go down a little dirt road, and before you know it, you're just surrounded by trees and a rundown trailer and this weird thing that looks like a little shack and stuff. And it's like, okay, this is kind of spooky. So I get out, and all of a sudden all these dogs start barking, and they're just barking and barking. Thing is, I couldn't really see them because the place is so overgrown. Well, as I get closer to the house, I realize everything's so overgrown, you can't even see the yard. And tucked away in the yard are a whole bunch of little dogs, and they're all angry, and they're all barking at me. And I'm like, okay, I'm not scared, it's just little dogs. So I go to drop the food box that I'm supposed to deliver off, and I had 2 food boxes. I had one that was emergency food, and then I had one that was actually fresh produce that's been donated for these people. And I'm like, I'm not carrying each box each time. If the last person was creeped out, I'm just going to carry both of them. So I'm carrying both of them. And I get to the front of the house, and I go to set it down on the front porch, little wood porch. And I look up, and I'm face to face with one of the little dogs. And it's just barking at me. And I'm like, it's okay, because I like little dogs, you know. And the dog's just staring and growling at me, and then it just stops, and it just stares, and its eyes get all big like this. And I'm like, okay, that's weird. So I'm squatting down to set the food box down. So I stand up, and I turn around. And as I turn away from this house, I look, and this massive bunch of overgrowth is actually hiding a really old, rundown, destroyed wood house, like clapboard house. The windows are gone, the door is gone, and it's just run down. I'm just waiting for the kudzu or the ivy to just destroy this thing and make it collapse, you know? But I'm looking, and as my eyes shift from the house to this little wood house, I see a white figure, like a white human-shaped figure in the doorway. And it's like kind of out of the corner of my eye. And as I see this white figure, it backs away out of the door frame. The problem is, door frame, and then right next to it is a window. So if it backed out of the doorway, I should have seen it in the window, and I didn't. Yeah. So at this point, I'm running all the way back down to this van that's taking me to these houses, and I'm like, go! And she opens the door, and she just lets me in, and I'm like, we need to go. And we need to go. So my driver, she takes off, and she's like kind of laughing. She's like, are you okay? And I'm like trying to catch my breath because I'm out of shape, I'll admit it. So I'm like, and then as I'm catching my breath, she says, did somebody throw rocks at you? And I'm like, no, nobody threw rocks at me. I thought I saw a ghost. And she's like, she got all, really? And I'm like, well, what do you mean? What do you mean did somebody throw rocks at me? And she tells me, the girl who did that address the other week, she went to drop off the boxes. And as she dropped off the first box, she felt something whiz past her head. And the driver saw her, and she saw her duck, but she didn't really see something whiz past her head. She just saw the girl duck. She delivered the food box. She walks back to the van for the second box. She's like, somebody's throwing rocks. And the driver's like, nobody's throwing rocks. There ain't even anybody home. There's no way somebody is home. Go on, you'll be all right. I'll keep an eye on you. Naturally, a driver wasn't really paying that close of attention. And when the girl went to drop off the second box and she was walking towards the van, all of a sudden out of the corner of the driver's eye, she saw the girl duck again, but she also saw something fly like this close above the girl's head. And she ran to the van and she ran inside. And driver's like, what happened? She's like, I had a rock thrown at me. This one hit my leg. And I think another one was coming straight for my head. And she was really upset. Said, and granted, this is a girl who, like earlier, I said, driver said didn't really talk a lot and all this other stuff. I'm like, But she was really upset, said, I don't really like this address. I don't want to come back. Okay. Well, that's weird. I didn't have rocks thrown at me, but I swear to God, I thought I saw a figure in an abandoned, rundown house. And I don't know how to explain it, especially if the figure went out of the doorway view inside the house and was supposed to be seen in the window, and they weren't there. And it scared me so bad because my heart jumped, and I'm like, what did I just see? That when I tried to really fixate on what was going on and the dog started barking even more after that was the weird thing. There was like this brief silence and then the dog started barking again. I'm like, okay, there has to be another human out here. And I yelped because I thought I saw a ghost or something. I saw something. And because at first you don't go, I saw a ghost. You're like, I think I saw some sort of scary person. And I jumped a little. I made a noise. Why didn't that person respond or come outside? They didn't. So I don't know what happened, but I'm not too comfortable at that address either. But it's my job to help feed people out here in rural North Carolina. So I don't know what to do. Want to know you guys' thoughts. And if you have something weird like that happen to you, please share it with us because I think it's cool, So yeah, contact at creekgeeks.com, or you can use our website or Facebook or anything and stay in touch. So, and let me know what you think, because I'd love to hear your theories. I mean, it's one thing that this place is on Spooky Hollow. It's another to actually have something spooky happen to you. So yeah, thanks for tuning in and listening to my story. Bye.